Everyone, welcome to Power Lunch. Quick intro for the five of you who don't know. Former CEO at Miller's Ale House, industry giant with over 20 years of experience, Nike Airwovens enthusiast, former senior vice president at McKinsey & Company, champion of philanthropy, world traveler, restaurant loyalty and personalization expert, esteemed borrower of Barack Obama's paramount words of wisdom, Nikhil Khanna. How you doing, sir?
How are you? Good, man. I'm good, Nabil. It's been a while. It's been a moment, right?
Yeah.
Why do I love this industry? Is like it's the gift that keeps giving.
Even on days you don't want the gift.
Most days, listen.
We've been trying to do this for a while. I'm so appreciative you made some time. We want to hear about like everything you accomplished there too. You know how that was. Like that's a huge machine and part of a bigger machine. So want to hear that story as well. But thank you so much for being with us. Where are you today?
I am actually in ATL.
You're not going to QSR. You're coming to New York. So we're gonna hang out in New York soon in person.
It's likely we will.
Okay. All right. Would love to hear a little bit about, the early days, right? Tell us a little bit about Saigon, New Delhi, early 2000s in America. Would love to just hear that crazy journey first, if you don't mind taking us back.
Of course, I had more hair. I was younger. Most of his hair was black. All his hair was black. I think early chapters are essentially if somebody said, hey, you want to do this? I never said no. No was not part of my dictionary. So Saigon was a part of that. And before that, a couple of entrepreneurial journeys were a part of that. But Saigon joined this firm out of a graduate program. Their role in Saigon to do a short-term stint. And I went and did it. Essentially, my boss left and I ended up getting his role as interim, but ended up turning the business around and did it. So my early part of youth, and I recommend to everyone, is don't say no to anything. Everything, like when I always ask myself, when was the last time you did something for the first time? It's the thing that I live by even today. Right? It doesn't matter what it is. Right? I mean, you must experience this. The day somebody showed up and my office was dirty and I was going to have a meeting, I cleaned the floors. Like you sweep the floors, you do what needs to be done to just get it done. And that laid the foundation of who I am today, is to not say no to anything and not look down on anything. Everything's kosher.
How old were you when you were sent to Saigon?
22.
That's incredible.
It was a happy accident. Let's put it this way.
So you're the same in terms of you still don't say no and you still will not look down on any work. If it needs to get done, it will get done. How are you different from 22-year-old Nikhil? Besides being way more experienced and way, just master of your craft.
Look, I mean, I think that one is I don't think I can walk through walls. I have to see the dentist occasionally every now and then. But beyond that, experience does count. Experience builds you a dictionary, or what I'd say, something to look back on. When I did this happened. Now, the good part is that's a learned memory. The bad part is it precludes you from doing things. The same is I never ever say, just because I did something in the past and this was the outcome, like I shouldn't do it again or I shouldn't try it. I always say, what did I learn from it? What was I aiming to do and how did it end up? So that's the same still. What's different is it's the level of measure, carrying people along. One, I think it's very important to lead from the front, but learning to get everybody along. So it's the 300 versus Rambo. I was a bit of a Rambo then, and now I call it the 300. Second part that's changed is setting direction and leadership for people and everybody around you to explain why you're doing what you're doing. So let them inside your brain. And what does that mean for them? What's it for you? Is a way to create that followership, and it's really, really important. You're only as strong. I always say this. It's like, I'm the hearse, right? My team's like my pallbearers. And the quality of the pallbearers are you volunteer for the job. You have to be strong enough to carry somebody on your shoulders. You have to be willing and to walk in tandem with the other pallbearers. And I'm only as good. I'm only as good as that. As much as it takes me pains to admit that I was a lot more arrogant and thought I could do it all on my own. Now I actually go like, what can I do with my community and how do I take my community forward? And what does that community need to look like? And that's what I say as a team. So that's the difference. That's a big, big difference. The same is if there's something coming my way, I'm curious. I want to understand and I want to solve the problem. That's still the same.
Incredible. Would love to hear a little bit about how you, the journey up to SVP at McKinsey, and then also the transition to food, because that's very interesting. There's a history of McKinsey leaders going on and becoming CEOs of all these incredible companies around the country. You have that same profile, but you picked food, right? And I would love to just hear about the McKinsey journey and then migration to food.
It's funny enough, I don't think I picked food. I think it picked me. Look, my journey started with one of our big clients. I was in the restaurant business at McKinsey itself, and I did 2 restaurant turnarounds there. Then I went on. When I left McKinsey, I was tapped on my shoulder by Rourke to honestly really see if there was an opportunity at Miller's to do better. They'd owned Miller's for 9 years, and was there an opportunity? Needless to say, I walked in. I believe this was, and I've used this line before with everybody, is there was a ton of opportunity. COVID humbled every restaurant business. And the ones who basically regained their muscle of running again are the ones who race. Not only did I get the brand running, and I say we because I built my team around it, get the brand running, but get the brand running faster than it ever done before. How did that happen? It happened with a variety of things, right? Is I think looking at dispassionate, like bringing in what I knew. What am I good at? I'm good at managing with insights, not instincts. I see the big thing that I've learned in the restaurant business where I bring strength is instead of instincts, I look for insights. And then the second part of that is once I have the insight, I don't wait it for like the difference between a lot of me and my other colleagues from consulting who grew up in consulting alone. I don't wait for the perfect or answer. Look, we go to the casino and play. I can't play like blackjack. It's flat odds, which means I'm making a bet when I know 50% chances I'm going to lose. In business, I up it a little bit. I go to 65, 70, and then quickly learn, like rapid learning loops. Second thing is never ever punish people for failing. I basically reward people for trying. Third thing was reward people disproportionately for trying and succeeding based on what's in their control. That created the juggernaut. That's what I brought to the table. What I learned is in the restaurant business over the last 5 years distinctively is we can have all these insights, but there's something about the touch and the feel of creating that experience. I think Will talks about it as unreasonable hospitality. It's the servant leader mentality of wanting to please people.
So how long was this turnover at Miller Ale House? How many months were you there, or how many years?
That was 2.5 years.
That's a lot to do in 2.5 years. That's a lot of transformation in 2.5 years. How were you able to be a change agent so quickly?
I think in some ways I was also lucky. COVID created the right transcript. If you're a healthy man who falls sick and cannot walk, doesn't mean you don't know how to walk. You also know how to run. But the question is, nobody's ever paced you and put you through like the athletic training of running. That's what I did. I harnessed the energy, potential energy that existed in the people. Like I rallied people around win. Look, we're going to win, but not win against other. We're going to do the best we can. I always talked about I aim for doing the best we can. If you do the best you can. The second thing I did is I had the thing called 3 pillars: flawless execution, all business created equal, and exceptional pay for exceptional performance, which was based on a quartile-based balanced scorecard that got published every week. And if you were on the top of the scorecard, you got rewarded 2x of what the bottom of the scorecard was. That means you had a chance to, if you perform, you got paid. First thing was flawless execution. We're going to understand what it takes. Now, building reward system, rallying people around doing their best. Look, I was the guy who was the change agent. You said it absolutely right. But most people need direction. The restaurant business, we don't make rockets. However, it's the hardest business in the world. It's the only business in the world that has manufacturing and services under the same roof. You make the food, and then there's a service element. And then guess what? Are literally the first point of interaction with the guest. What the guest experiences is by people who don't have permanent careers, they're hourly employees. How do you create that atmosphere? How do you create people want that desire to win or do their best? And that's the template that I hit on, looking for it. And that comes from like my curiosity of anthropology. What drives people? Nobody likes to fail. And I tapped into people's desire to succeed, my own desire to succeed, and I chose them the path and direction. And the most important thing, and lastly, most important thing was I called prioritization. I was proactive, purposeful, planned, and the last part, prioritized about my things. These are the 3 things we did. We didn't do a 4th thing. We're going to talk about these 3. By the way, that was also my learning, is when you lose that prioritization, your team loses direction. We are at our best when we're able to serve people the experiences they want to have, because you can curate every experience within the 4 walls. What it means is you have to be engaged, you have to know your audience, you have to see what you're doing. It's like I called it, we build our own matrix. You choose to swallow the red pill or the blue pill, and then I gave you the experience. The biggest thing for me, objective was, remember, and I talked to you about this, is even before a guest walks in, how do I get to know if he's coming for the red pill or the blue pill? How do I even induce the visit? How do I know when a 28-year-old who's here right now with his colleagues for work, he happens to have 2 kids. So I want to remind him, hey, kids eat free. How do I get my server to remember to ask for another drink? Hey, 4 people. I focus on technology to solve that. How do I solve the hot food, hot, cold food, cold? And I have ideas on all 3 that I implemented. So look, I think let's talk about my favorite, which I call the hot food, hot, cold food, cold. And that's my favorite because
I'm not aware of the concept at all, so my mind is about to be blown.
So you know what hot food, hot, cold food, cold is? The oldest thing in the restaurant business. Hot food should be served hot, cold food should be served cold, right? You don't want a melting ice cream, and you don't want cold fried chicken, do you?
Understood. Okay. So how did you make sure this was happening? Also, from this angle, you look like the Indian George Clooney. From this angle, so
I appreciate it.
We'll make sure this is not edited out, by the way. The wrong.
This one?
Keep it.
Which?
No, the other angle. That
one.
Angle right there. Perfect. Yeah, very Clooney.
I'll talk with that tilt in my head now. I mean, what we devised is a simple $300 camera-based solution that tracked when food came into the expo window and when it left.
Not what restaurant CEOs are doing. Because of our margins, they're not as brave and dynamic as you are. You are coming in as a first principle thinker and someone who's like, I don't care how this looks. Those are the philosophies you have, but that's not how restaurant CEOs are thinking often. And I commend you for it, but why are you thinking that way?
The weakest link on my resume when people talk to me say, you're not a restaurant guy. That's my biggest strength. I'm not. I'm a problem solver. It's a complex business, I recognize. Nobody should hire me to flip a burger well. They should hire me to run a great restaurant business that balances, that creates great outcomes for guests, great outcomes for shareholders, and great engagement for employees. I believe I found what that secret sauce is. So when you do scenario based, it's the funniest thing is the restaurant business is the most data rich business and it's the least insight rich business. It's like an insight famine where it's data rich. And people still rely on Excel or a SQL model, or people say it's my CIO's agenda. No, there are very few pockets of opportunity left. And to understand those pockets of opportunity, you have to look and try to understand why, what is happening and where is happening. Simple as that. If you do a menu set, then you've got to say, what did you learn from your menu set? You want to look at your menu. I'll tell you a simple thing with MacGyver, right? Very, very simple thing. And by the way, it's combining MacGyvering and thinking through. You have tag-alongs in a menu, right? You've seen tag-alongs. Most tag-alongs are giveaways, right? They put on the table with a regular menu. What's the biggest grouse you hear from people? Insights are not just based on data. Insights are based on being curious and actually suspending belief on this is how I've done it always. That's what I keep telling. That's what I've kept with myself is that I'm the Peter Pan. I'm still curious. I still want to find why. I'm in a land of wonder every time I walk into a restaurant. Oh, why are you doing it this way? It's like, because I always have. But is that the best way? If you had freedom, how would you do? What if you did it this way? What if you did it this way? Most people know the answers. I can talk about I didn't do this, but a guy way before me did this. Our burger patties are made by hand. But how do you get accurate size? All he did was get his buddy with a CNC machine to create slots that were the right same size. So we have there's 32 holes in that fit a burger patty. You can't go wrong. You can't miss it. All you have to do is put meat in there and season it both sides. Simple, right? The last part of what I'd say is a purposeful, right? Remember I said purposeful, which means act. Don't just think, act. You'll never have perfect information. You have to have a bias to action. My own company, when I'm independent, it's called GSD. Get what GSD stands for. Get shit done. It's a question is, we had this joke, not this joke, the reality is, we will get in a room and we'll debate an idea. Or when we walk out of the room, if we've aligned that this is the best idea, we're going to talk about what the if is. If we should do this. After that, what I want to know is how, when, where, what. We're not going to have a debate again. What we'll do is do our best swing and finish the swing. Finishing the swing, I think, is the least appreciated quality in the restaurant business. Most people start so many initiatives, they never finish them. That's what we started doing. And we said, look, be purposeful means we're like, okay, we're going to have menu launch, so we're not going to do these two initiatives when we have a new menu rollout. We dug through our data to understand what is it, when is it, how to do, where to do. The only thing that changed, one throat to choke. It's a bad word. Single point of accountability. Created severe accountability in the system. Transparency. We know our data. No, I'm an insight junkie, right? I told you. The insight junkie, what happens is you're just curious. You're trying to correlate things to understand correlation to causation and what is going on and why.
So if I asked you, like, hey, your fellow CEOs, if you had to give them one advice, would it be like everything you learned, try to unlearn it? Is that the feedback? Be an empty vessel? Is that your headline there?
I would change it a little bit. Bring back the child in you. The sense of wonder you had. Have you seen the pyramids?
No, I haven't. It's a dream though. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist, so I want to go see it.
You'll see movies, you see pictures, and you stand there and you cannot but wonder, how do people do it then? They had an ambition. Have a vision, but have a sense of wonder. Don't lose that sense of wonder. Don't ask why. Ask why not. And then once you ask that, then go how, what, when, where, and who. Don't shy. And the second part I tell the CEOs is, don't be afraid to have the tough conversations. I call it tough love. I talk with my team as like, we'll have tough love. Did we agree to do this? We agree on how the best to do it? Yes. Why could we not get it done? Let's talk about it. The other thing, the culture to bring about, what I tell most leaders is, don't let your people be afraid of failing. Be afraid of not trying. And when you fail, build a culture to go at the end of the day and have a drink of your choice, even if it's sparkling water. Sit around, don't point fingers and say, we're going to sit and understand what happened. What did we learn from this? Because here's the thing. Growing up, one thing we learn is everything's a trade-off and nothing's perfect. That's what I tell the CEOs to embrace. Don't be afraid. Don't fear.
I love it. Like, I have this U curve in my head, which is I was my most ambitious when I was a child. The ambition went down in my early 20s. And some of us are lucky enough where it goes back up again. Like, some of us are lucky enough where it's like, oh, like, it goes back up, and some of us it never goes back up, right? It just goes downwards, right? Yeah, I'm just inspired, man. Like, every time I talk to you, I have to sit here and sometimes pretend to be inspired. I have to sit here and listen to sometimes leaders from our industry, and sometimes I have to like pretend. But I literally am so pumped to hear you talk the last couple of minutes and inspired.
I appreciate you saying that. I do nothing special. I'm a very average person. I have reasonable amount of common sense. And I know what I know. Nobody can ever take that away from me. But I'm very, very, very obsessed with knowing what I don't know and then learning about it. I am that beast that's just, I voraciously consume information across the board, across everything, technology, anything. I read a menu if I have to, I have nothing to read. And not because of anything, it's just, why not? I have one life. This is the gift of life. So I'm really glad, and I appreciate you picking me up. Like, I'm able to like chat right now. That makes me happy.
Incredible. I'm really pumped. Anything else, Nikhil, you want to add? This was inspiring, and I want to run through a wall after this conversation.
I think you say you're inspired. The first time I met, I thought you were a very hungry sales guy, and I didn't know if there was substance. And I watched your journey since then. I'll tell you, I'm inspired. And I quote your example to very many people I already have. You should thank your parents and their stars and whoever you worship for like putting you in a place where you're making magic happen. I don't talk to very many people about my ideas, not because I don't want to, because I don't know if the conversation will be valuable. Or with you, it's fun. The other thing I'll leave my colleagues is like what you said earlier is it's a really hard business. It's the hardest business. I worked in telecom, oil and gas, consumer, healthcare, both in pharma and hospitals. God, I've worked through myriad of businesses of all scale, from like 2 million to 100 billion. Literally 100 billion company transformation.
Wow.
But this business is humbling. To be a leader in this business is very humbling. You know why? Because your P&L closes every night. You know what your revenue is versus prior last year, same day. You know what your direct costs are. You know what your labor and food costs is. In some ways, every morning you wake up with knowing your P&L down to a restaurant level. And that can be very, very hard to deal with. Like I said, there's a lot of data. How do you turn that into insight is say, what's the problem am I trying to solve? Right? Be obsessed with the problem you're trying to solve. And the thing is, you can't make everyone happy all the time. You can't even make most people happy most of the time. You can only make some people happy some of the time. And to be okay with that. That's really hard. You ask me, that's the hardest part. This business is hard. I applaud every leader in this, irrespective of where they came from, irrespective of what they can do more, because the ability to carry that title every day or P&L, it humbles you every day. You're one storm away from your P&L looking like crap, and everybody will forget why it looked like crap. That's what it is. So I hats off to everybody who's done it for life, man.
There's so many unique ways you look at our business because you got to look at telecom, because you got to look at agriculture. You looked at so many different industries, and then you have this unique view of this industry. You work also in 4 different continents, and I think that just changes your landscape of not only how to look at food in America, but food across the world. And when someone like you say it's really hard, it's really hard. It just is.
I had this conversation when I was trying to start my business, and I've had this oftentimes. Is I view our business as a subscription business. Except there is no annual subscription. Some people have tried, but there's no annual subscription. But it's a subscription business. We're asking people to come back again and again. And as we talk about it, frequency is a big measure of how often your guests come, right? Upselling or bundling is a great example. Go to DirecTV, go to anything else. They do the exact same thing. We talk about churn. So why is it that we shy away from not calling it a subscription, we're treating it? That's what I learned from telecom that I brought to this business is essentially we're in a subscription business where we don't have the shackles of putting somebody contractually in a subscription. So how do you create that envelope of a subscription with your service, food, and your ambiance? How do you do that? That's the beauty and the challenge. Why do I love this industry? Is like, man, if you're curious and you care, this will keep you up. This will keep you happy for the rest of your life. It's the gift that keeps giving.
Even on days you don't want the gift.
Most days, listen. So I have this one guy who told me, he's like, I got a surprise for you. And I looked at him and I said, gee, I hate surprises. He said, no, it's a good surprise. I said, no, I hate surprises. So why? I said, it's my business. If I don't know something about it, that means I'm the idiot. I hate surprises. I want to know everything about everything all the time. So it's perfect. This business is perfect for me because I could pull up my sales. I used to dig into checks and see what people were adding. And it was so painful to do it some of the older platforms, as you know, the one that I work with.
Yeah.
Not dissing on anything, but it's hard.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not easy on any. At the level of curiosity, I was looking at a check level. Like, I wanted to be the guy who wanted a SQL code to say, can I do this? Can I do this? I want to know like this. I want to know which hour, what sells the most.
Yes.
And why.
Yes.
And what does it get added to next to, which is why I put in the software I put in.
This was amazing. Let me know if you have time in New York, and we'll go out to eat.
We will, my friend. We can talk more.
To fly with me. Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox. Tube socks, boy.